Hi and welcome to the Party Line. This podcast was recorded on Indigenous land. We stand in solidarity with our Indigenous brothers and sisters in their struggles against racism and capitalism. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling party line. Oh, I never will forsake thee, for I love this life of mine.
Hi Jordan.
Hello.
How you going?
Feeling awkward.
Yeah. Omar, are you feeling awkward?
Oh, I hate being in front of a camera. Just makes me like...
I just can't even look at it. Can't even look at the camera. There was a guy on YouTube. The reason why we're saying this is there's a guy on YouTube who was like, oh, why are you guys filming this podcast? And I was like, well, give the people what they want, you know.
To see our faces.
That is the main demand of most social movements at the moment, yeah.
And he said that we looked really awkward on camera. And like, I don't know, is this sort of like, is he telling a woman to smile on camera more is my question.
This is a good point, yeah.
Yeah. I feel he's objectifying me as well. But I'll try and be more dynamic and be more beautiful.
Just look at the camera. Hi, how you guys going?
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, apologies. If you've never watched any of our YouTube episodes.
Yeah. Anyway, it's nice to know people care about how we're feeling.
Yeah.
And people should know if we like sort of take you up for your comments that you make on Instagram.
Yeah, we might respond to them.
Yeah.
Like some of them are quite funny. Some of them are like absolutely terrible, and those are the ones that we usually respond to.
But if you do a really good one-liner, I reckon you'll get a shout-out too.
I reckon.
It's an argument to always be funny and never be lame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And try and agree with us. Like, I'm not sure if people notice, but the point of a party line is you meant to follow loyally. And there's been a lot of backlash in recent weeks. So get with the program, guys.
Sorry, we're too radical in our positions. Jordan, you said that you were on a debate.
Oh, yeah. I went on a debate. It's coming out in February, apparently. An SBS one. They recently did one about like masculinity. They did one on the election a while ago. Try to get young people engaged in political conversations. Kind of, I think what they were going for is the Jubilee style. You know, it's like one leftist debates 27 fascists kind of thing.
Did you do that?
No, well, like kind of, but it wasn't exactly the same. They were like, this is our debate on capitalism, and they had 5 capitalists and then me, but they were like, no, it's balanced. But yeah, in reality, they had like, you know, a guy that owns 180 something properties, someone from the IPA, like most right.
Different. These are two different people.
Two different people.
A broad spectrum of society.
We're going to be talking about the Liberal Party later, and we didn't even talk about the IPA.
Oh my God.
That's actually, we should have. I mean,
they're like the Heritage Foundation of the Liberals.
Totally, yeah.
Oh, man.
Maybe we can do a special bonus episode on the IPA.
Not just a shit beer type, but also a really bad institution.
Yeah, terrible. Right. To finance influences, like invest with me kind of influences. Jack Toohey, who is...
He's good.
He's good. He's definitely like left of all of, like far to the left of all of these people.
Doesn't really seem like it was that hard to be left to the rest of the people.
No, yeah. And then myself. And then we didn't debate capitalism at all. They gave us like 6 statements that they wanted us to respond to. And none of them were about like addressing anything about capitalism. It was more like, are we prioritizing the environment over the economy too much? Or nationalization or like privatization is good kind of thing. And my favorite bit on the debate was in the privatization conversation, the IPA guy used the Bureau of Meteorology's website as an example. And it's like they outsourced that to the private sector and it cost heaps of money.
And they overcharged them.
Yeah.
They could have predicted that.
And you're saying this is an example of why we need more privatization. This is like, you're from the IPA. You're a research fellow.
I feel like, right wingers are really crap at making arguments for their own system. I did a debate once at Melbourne University. It was socialism versus capitalism, and it was the Socialist Alternative Club at Melbourne Uni versus the Liberal Party
that would have been fun.
Club. And you've done one of these as well, Omar.
So long ago, I
Yeah.
can't remember it. Yeah.
But the sort of guy who got up for the capitalism side, he reaches down into his bag and like really
iPhone.
No, it's worse.
Better.
It's worse than iPhone. He pulls out into his bag and he's got in his hand a McDonald's burger, and he starts slowly
Capitalist. Peak
unwrapping
capitalism.
the burger, bites into it in this like really like dramatic and like overly sort of like sensual sort of way, and he goes, capitalism. And it's like that was his argument for like why the system's really good. A disgusting McDonald's burger.
It's not even food.
Ugh. And then he was like, have you ever used a telephone? So yeah,
That is really funny. The world's changed a lot, you know. Even McDonald's itself is going all kind of woke's not the right word, but like healthy, you know, like it's like they have like lettuce in their burgers now and the occasional
I think
tomato.
they always add lettuce.
Nah, the pictures are different, you know.
You can get wraps these days.
Yeah, it's really like they're really trying to be like Macca's is actually a health food. Yeah, you could go to a like local green kind of cafe, or you could just go to Macca's. Same.
Exactly.
So, just in terms of what's going to happen in this podcast today, we told you like 2 weeks ago that we were going to have Chloe from Red Flag Radio on to talk about the Liberal Party, and then we didn't do it.
We fucked up.
Yeah.
And then we also fucked up again today. We started recording and then my computer restarted in the middle of recording. But we
did it
It's
again.
here now.
So we're highly professional,
Yeah.
as you
Yeah.
can tell.
Yeah. So if you know anyone who's like a producer who like can give us advice on like doing things better,
Yeah.
send us an email. But yeah, so later on the app we're going to hear from Chloe talking about Liberal Party. So keep listening for that.
It's a good episode.
But should we go into the headlines? What's
Yeah,
been
I
happening in the
think we
news
should.
this week?
Yeah. What should we start off with? Should we start off with the Trump finally won his Peace Prize?
Oh yes.
I reckon. Well, Trump finally won his fucking Peace Prize from FIFA.
From
Yeah.
They made up a prize for him.
The organization that was behind the like slave construction
Yeah.
of
Totally,
stadiums in Qatar.
They know a lot about peace and
Yeah.
togetherness.
It's great. It's so good. Let's not differentiate ourselves from the other Peace Prize as well, giving it to war criminals and such. Let's give it to Trump.
Yeah, I mean, it's happening in America. And I think this is basically a way of them lobbying Trump to like
Totally.
not deport any of people who bought tickets who go for like an African team or something. But it's, yeah. I mean, FIFA's just such a disgusting.
Yeah.
It's like FIFA
Yeah.
and Formula One. And maybe the Olympics. I know less about them. But they're like just pure capital, evil, fascistic kind of institutions. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
But Trump will be feeling good tonight, so that's positive.
Totally.
The next one I really like. This is less a news headline, but the Australian put up a poll on their Facebook
Did they?
page. Yeah, it was like, you know how we did the ACDC versus Oasis
Oh, yeah,
one,
yeah.
which was objectively a very good poll.
Appalling result.
Really good result. This one was, is gentle parenting to blame for low attendance rates at school?
Good question. Is it?
I'm going to go with
No.
yes.
Oh,
I mean, from the Australian perspective.
oh yeah. From
No,
the
no.
Australian
Naturally, yeah.
perspective.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Are you a gentle parent, Omar?
I've got a whole episode planned about parenting. Yeah, I'm still working it out. I'm reading a book at the moment
Yeah.
about how to raise a toddler.
Is it giving you good advice?
I'm not going to reveal my
Secrets.
content now. Yeah,
My theory is that you just the best way to parent children is to just talk to them constantly like they're adults.
so that's wrong.
Really?
Yep, that's the first thing I learned from reading this book. They're not adults. They don't have frontal cortex. They cannot process.
I know, but if you just keep
Complicated.
talking to them, they'll have
No.
really good language skills. Like when they grow up, they'll know how to talk to people.
Yeah, that. But you can't expect them to be adults when they're not, and that's actually a
They're-
big mistake.
They're
So
more-
like when Nadal treats me like shit, I'm supposed to be like, no, you know what? You're not really thinking about that. You're just expressing your inner turmoil, and that's okay. And I still love you, even though really I'm like, you fucking asshole. Like I've been up since 5 a.m. this morning. Yeah, no.
See, I really like Nadal because he says my name.
and he's also very cute. That helps.
So-
But I
Yeah.
think the position is that you should treat children like plants and play classical music to them.
I do that too. Yeah, it keeps him calm. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to do a parenting
There will be.
special episode.
Top 10 tips on how to raise a toddler.
Are we going to get like some expert parent? My mum could come in. She's raised a lot of kids.
Yeah, and the book I'm reading, the intro, is by Sarah Jessica Parker.
As in, like
as
Sex in the City.
No way.
Yeah,
That's so good.
Which is clearly very relevant to parenting.
Naturally.
So,
Yeah. Also, we did get another comment on the use of cups.
Oh, yes. So I have my minion coloured keep cup here with me
which
today.
Is great.
Because someone took us up for having takeaway coffee cups during the podcast. I brought mine in. I have a couple. I think that's the thing with keep cups. You actually have lots and lots of them. So
Totally,
probably it's outweighed by the material
environmental impact.
That's right.
It's definitely true of reusable shopping bags.
Is it?
You have to use one of those green bags
Yes,
like
like
100
yeah,
times or
yeah,
something.
totally,
Which
yeah.
I don't think very many people do.
No, they just sit in the back of people's cars.
Yeah.
But I think it's an important thing about, individual sort of consumption and responsibility. There was a headline from The Guardian about because we were talking about the data centres a couple of weeks ago. And a new sort of report has come out saying that by 2035, Sydney's data centres will use more water in a day than Canberra can drink. So, respect to people who use, the keep cups and stuff like that. I think it generally indicates that people have, a desire to do something about the climate crisis that we're all living in. But then it's just, how is individual responsibility going to be the thing that sort of changes things when these fucking data centers are going to be using 250 megalitres of water in a single day?
Well, one of the things in Melbourne, I remember reading about this a few years ago, is that domestic water consumption is like 4% of the state's water consumption. It was then, at least. So it's like, you cut your water use in half and you're maybe affecting 0.05% or whatever.
And so much of all this stuff, like the carbon footprint
Totally,
thing was invented by fossil fuel companies.
It was BP. They hired a PR firm to market the term carbon footprint to individualize the problem that they're
creating.
Overwhelmingly
a
responsible.
petroleum company.
Yeah, it's like 100 companies. Literally just 100 companies responsible for 70% of the world's emission.
There's a great Red Flag article about this actually by Lily, who was up in Newcastle the other week with the Rising Tide comrades, called, I think, if keep cups changed anything, they would be illegal. Which I think is a good way to end this segment.
And then speaking of evil companies, so there's a Instagram, and a media outlet called Declassified Australia. They have reported that an F-35 fighter jet cannon part was sent on a passenger flight from Sydney to Israel.
Emergency delivery.
On a passenger flight.
Yeah. Your ability to kill people has been slowed down slightly by a malfunctioning piece. Will help you out with that.
Yeah. Like every couple of weeks, it's like there's a new weapon that we've declassified and have discovered that we're sending to Israel to, murder Palestinians.
And then the government has the gall to say actually no, Australia isn't a part of the supply chain.
Well, first they said there's no weapons.
That's right.
Yeah.
Then they're like non-lethal weapons.
Sorry, cannon part?
Yeah, well, but even before the cannon part, it was the release mechanism of the Bombay doors. It was actual weapons. There was AI fucking weapons and shit. And now more and more stuff. But it's non-lethal. We're exporting non-lethal part. Absolutely fuck off.
Yeah,
how do you stand by this now? What I wonder what the position on this is. How non-lethal a cannon part is.
Well, I guess it's the bullet that's the lethal part.
Totally. Yeah.
So
people don't kill people, guns kill people? Or is it the other way around?
No, it's the other way around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But in this case, guns don't kill people, just the bullets kill people, the bombs. Yeah.
That's right.
The idea that there are non-lethal parts of an F-35 fighter.
But you wonder why people are skeptical of the media and so on. The amount of lies and bullshit that politicians tell, it just creates this idea that everything is fair game. Everything could be fake,
Totally.
Did we ever go to the moon?
Oh, shit. Sorry.
Speaking of politicians, last week we spoke about UK Labor's various policies on a number of things, particularly migration and how terrible it is. I guess this week I don't even know what to say. I saw this video and I was disgusted.
So we'll play the video for you. So this is Zack Polanski, who's the leader of the Greens in the UK.
Most people in this audience and watching this at home will have had an experience of a care worker. 1 in 5 care workers are foreign nationals. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't particularly want to wipe someone's bum. And I'm very grateful for the people who do this work. This really important work.
This is the problem. like this is, a left-wing party in the UK saying that they're pro-migration because they want a section of the working class to exploit a bit more than the other, like the rest of
to do the shit jobs.
Totally. That's, like it's not a shit job. That's
Yeah.
a really important job, like carers and stuff like that.
It's just so belittling
Totally.
and like dismissive, and
Totally.
it actually does play into the right wing arguments, like
Absolutely.
because we were right to criticize the Labor Party for the sort of appalling tweet that they put out, sort of insinuating the socialist position was in line
With the
with the
capitalist.
capitalist position. But Polanski shows that it's like, if you're just a sort of middle class progressive, you don't actually think about workers' rights. You don't think about things in terms of class and in terms of what would be right for the working class as a whole. And then so you just say, oh, no, we need more migrants to come in so that we can hyper exploit them in the
Cheap
care
labour.
industry.
Yeah.
It's actually revolting.
Yeah.
I know. And it's this argument that it's good for capitalism to have migrants, yeah? And that's the sort of liberal multiculturalist argument. Migrants make societies richer, they, all the different foods and cultures and whatever, they build the economy, they create GDP growth. It's just all facile. And that's not the reason why the left supports migrants. The left supports migrants because opposition to migration is a key plank of right-wing politics. And the precarity or instability or vulnerability of migrant workers allows them to be hyper exploited, which fucks over their families, and then lowers the overall wage bill for the ruling class, which means all the other workers who are not migrants get screwed as well. So you can see how our actual interests are united. Same thing with offshoring, right? The reason we don't support, sweatshop labor or whatever, it's very exploitative for those workers, but then it also lowers the overall standard for workers around the world. And so we actually have an interest in unionizing workers who are coming in or workers in factories that are being set up elsewhere. We have a common interest. This is not at all how the liberals see things.
Yeah, totally. The left position, the socialist position, which really is just demonstrated as like this is the only correct position that you can have on this topic, is not, anti-migration, because that just reinforces various racism and nationalism and all that kind of stuff. But it's also not like, we need an exploited class of workers that we can, treat worse than the rest of the country and stuff like that. It's actually, our interests are aligned here. We're fighting for the same rights, like for you to have the same rights as us, like standing in solidarity with and fighting for these workers so that we can all do better as a fucking class. Like if you don't have a class-based position on this, then you are on either side of a capitalist fence. You are either, protecting the national interests of, a small section of capitalists in the country, or you're protecting the big version of it, so you can exploit more people for lower wages. And it's just like, it is really actually quite pathetic.
It's toxic politics. It's the same thing happened with Brexit, right? It was like the right wing were being racist freaks, and then the sort of liberal response was, oh, well, don't you want to go on a holiday to Europe? Like, this will be so much easier. Or like, tariffs are going to be so inefficient. They're going to make British businesses worse off. It's like, how does that appeal to working class people in any way? It's purely an argument to, upwardly mobile, temporary, whatever kind of middle class people who want to travel. And then also just business,
Yeah, totally.
And so, the traditional left argument against the EU has always been it's a neoliberal, appalling right-wing institution. It has like maximum budgetary spending and limits like established in the constitution and all these free trade rules. So that's the sort of left argument against the EU. But then you have this debate about like basically, is Europe good or bad for holidays or versus migrants,
like the left discussion shouldn't be on like which section of the capitalists we want to support here on this question. It's just stupid.
And just elitist in this case.
Totally.
Classic Greens politics. I mean, who was it? Richard Di Natale.
Had the au pairs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is the class of people. Like, how many investment properties do the Greens MPs mostly have and stuff? So, it's a different approach to politics. That's the important thing to take out of it, I think.
Totally. Completely different. Absolutely.
Do you want to finish this off?
You had a story, Omar.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to try and establish an Eat the Rich segment of headlines. Like every week, we're going to try and have like one news story that's like the most indicative of like how evil capitalism is in terms of the rich. And I found one about a mental health clinic in Switzerland, which, we support mental health clinics being established and maximum accessibility and all that. This one has one patient at a time.
Oh.
One patient.
Wow.
And they have a lot of staff. And so you get this wraparound care.
Oh,
Sounds really
This sounds
beautiful.
good.
Yeah. So you have like a week in and then like I think a month follow-up afterwards. Like it's really intensive. And it costs 250,000 Australian dollars for 1 week.
And that's
And then there's-
subsidised or
No, that you just pay. And then there's the month after that has an additional fee. That's just for the week.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And they talk about how they're wonderful, warm environment. They're in the Swiss Alps.
Oh.
Their website shows really great pictures. The link it's called Calder, the Calder Clinic, CALDA.
Oh, wow.
And
it's very white.
and they're very beautiful people getting this treatment.
That looks like AI.
Yeah, I mean, it probably is. But yeah, I encourage people to look it up. And if you're feeling depressed by the state of capitalism or you've experienced some trauma, which is a lot of people in this society,
Help is there for you.
yeah, you may not be able to access rehabilitation clinics or mental health services because the government keeps cutting them, but you can always be gladdened by the knowledge that there is
Some
one
rich people are
person
doing
somewhere
really
who's
fine.
being looked after.
One question I have is like, if it's a $250,000 a week stay for one patient, why does the website look so shit, and why does it all look like AI?
Not sure, but that's the facts of the matter.
It actually looks like a real estate agency website. Like this is just a property kind of walkthrough.
Anyway,
One
so
of the
this is why we should eat the rich. And if you have other stories like this, please send them through.
Founder, 48, male, Italy.
Omar, I think this is like you've uncovered like
A scam.
a scam.
No, it's not a scam. It was in the AFR. That's how I found it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they should get a new website designer. Look, that guy has been created on like Meta AI.
Yeah. Imagine, okay, so sorry, these people are coming in for like mental health support and then they've taken a photo, like a backlit photo, like glamour shot of each one of these.
Well, they actually advertise their services to VIPs and very high income people or something. There's a phrase for it.
Amazing.
Anyway,
ultra high net worth.
Yes,
or
exactly.
whatever.
That. Yeah. So that's the clinic. Anyway,
That's nuts. Imagine if you were an ultra rich, ultra high net worth individual and being like, I am suffering from depression. They're like, cool, come here, 250K. Also, stand here. We're going to put some lights up around you.
I mean, there's a certain cultural cachet in campaigning for
It looks
mental
like
health
they
these
just
days.
give you vitamins. That's like their main selling point.
All right, we got to move on.
Okay, sorry.
Anyway, you can see the appeal of these places.
Yeah. Anyways, we should talk about the NDIS.
Yep.
Who wants to lead that?
Well, it's really
That's
just
terrible.
so horrible. Like, so there's so much wrong with the NDIS. The first thing being, in creating it, the government destroyed public health services that people could access in community that were, funded and run by government services, and replaced it with basically just, you have money to go access a private provider.
Yep.
And then those private providers just charge whatever the fuck they want. And also there's just been scandal after scandal of these private, providers
just rorting the system.
But also abusing
Totally.
people. Like there was the horrible stories that came out about young autistic children that were being sat on and, held down with restraints.
Yeah.
And, people who would get old people who'd get vouchers for, gardening to be done. No one would ever show up. It's just, it's
Or like excursions to shopping malls, and they would just put them in the bus, leave them in the bus car park for an hour, and then go back, take them home.
Yeah.
so it just it really breeds this idea that disabled and old people and people who need help are just there to be made money from, the rich get money out of them.
Totally. Yeah, the thing is, it's really frustrating because a disability support program is so essential everywhere. But the way that they've done it is so that taxpayer money can go and fund these private providers that exploit their workers, not only, the participants of the scheme, and then that kind of portion of the fund keeps getting more expensive and more expensive and more expensive as they realize they can get away with literally whatever the fuck they want so that they can make more profit. And then instead of responding to the outrageous and egregious, exploitation that's happening because of facilitated by our taxpayer money, the government's response, the Labor government's response, is to be like, well, how can we get less people onto this? Like that's the problem. It's the participants that are doing the fraud.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're the problem. The people who with disabilities that this fund exists to support, that we need to kick off this program, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah. So the whole discussion has been about how can they reduce the number of people accessing the NDIS, make sure that they're not growing at too high a rate.
And unsustainable.
Yeah. It's like, well, if there are disabled people in our society, like you said, we should provide for them, not blame them for it. And so now the government is bringing in a completely, there's no human interaction on the assessment of people's applications to get support from the NDIS. So you fill in a form, a computer,
an AI
system.
It never makes
reviews
mistakes.
it.
I mean, they're really smart.
Known for that. Yeah.
And then there's no appeal process.
Yeah.
So if you get rejected, you've been rejected.
I think you can appeal, but the appeal is to redo the assessment by another, like the same machine will redo it. So you can change your inputs slightly, but yeah, there's no human interaction. And the thing about these government bureaucracies is they're already really hard. Like we've all had the experience of having like one decent worker who's sort of helped us navigate it at some points. But like for the most part, they're these really inhumane, robotic. The whole point of bureaucracy is, you get the same result every time, regardless of the individual human experience that, and requirements. So they're really hard to navigate, but at least you can talk to someone occasionally and maybe sometimes win something decent through it. This is just like taking it to the next level. And this is the government, by the way, that made a big song and dance about Alan Tudge's robo-debt,
Totally,
They did that huge review, went on for months, deliberately just... And fair enough, like they went through the horror and misery that robo-debt delivered. But now they're just applying the same methodology.
Well, a worse one.
Yeah.
Robo-debt wasn't great. That's for sure. It's fucking shit. But there was a human involvement. And there was, an appeals process and whatever, no matter how flawed that is. Now... they've gotten rid of literally any opportunity for a human intervention because, like, with robo-debt, obviously most of that, the media and stuff that came from it and actually resulted in something happening finally years down the track was, people complaining about the decisions and stuff like that, but also from the workers, from Services Australia and the then DHS being like, this is illegal. I think this is bad. I don't think this is a legal decision and I'm going to raise this to my boss. And obviously that was suppressed and whatever. But now there's none of that. Like there are no workers because they're not involved.
Well, they want to cut costs. That's part of the point. So they want to cut staff. And so this is AI being used to cut white collar workers, which is sort of the main way at the moment it's manifesting is cutting of sort of entry level or mid level kind of white collar work. So it's just despicable in a range of ways.
And it's one of the areas that the government has focused in on is the increase in autism and ADHD diagnosis in young children. And they're saying that too many people are accessing the services, which is just so uncaring, obviously, about...
It's not their fault that they're accessing the fucking service.
And there's sort of more knowledge and understanding about like the sort of troubles that young people sort of experience and face in the way that our society is not structured in a way to meet the needs of people who don't fit into, one sort of specific sort of box. But the problem with all of this as well is that there would be solutions to this that don't require an AI model to fuck over the lives of ordinary people. We could hire more staff in schools to mean that there's more support services. We could bring back primary and like secondary healthcare into the community to mean that people can access services, close to their house. We could make society more easy to navigate for people. But the government doesn't want to do any of that stuff. There is a logic that runs through our society, which is that we don't deserve anything and you should be lucky and happy if you get a tiny sort of amount of support. And this is just going to ruin people's lives.
Totally. Again, yeah. And I think a big part of the solution as well is like we want there to be a program for people with disabilities that they can access. But not with all of these private companies involved. Like the care workers that are working hard to provide care for people with disabilities should be well-paid public servants, not working for some random boss who they literally don't even know. Like often the boss is just an app. Like just completely abolish it. Get rid of their 20, 30, 40% cut of your wage and employ care workers as public servants.
Absolutely.
And pay them really fucking well so that they can care for people, because that's what they want to do.
Because the other thing is, when they introduced NDIS, they abolished a whole bunch of other programs that existed to help people who weren't the most extreme cases. And so there's no middle ground now. Like there's no, like, everyone who's had anything to do with anyone with mental health issues knows that like that whole world is just decrepit. There's no funding for it. There's no ability to see people without paying enormous amounts. Mental health, I think it's extraordinarily difficult to qualify on NDIS with mental health.
You can't. It has to be a primary condition or whatever, and it's
exactly.
Like
so it excludes that whole field, and then even like physical health stuff. Like a friend of ours has chronic fatigue as a result of COVID and has just been totally debilitated. But she doesn't qualify for NDIS because it's not a permanent disability necessarily. Like we don't know. It could be, but it has been for like 4 years, but we don't know if it'll go forever. There's no middle ground services. There's no service to people with like serious but possibly temporary things or things that are not like, disabilities in the classic sense. But so everyone therefore has to choose. Either you get nothing or you go on the NDIS. So if you can do it, you'll obviously try and get your loved ones on the NDIS because it's the only support that exists. So, it's like they cut everything else, then they wonder why people are going on the NDIS, and then they cut that. They've also cut things like musical therapy, art therapy, as unscientific. And it's like, who knows how beneficial it is. Like, I'm not an expert. I'm sure it is a bit beneficial. But even if it wasn't like absolutely beneficial, it's obviously a human thing for people to do with no support. So like, that's good. People should have access to human things.
People with disabilities deserve to live good lives.
So even if it's not a treatment, but if it's like just a nice part of people's lives, they should have access to
and
that.
I think the thing is, it is a treatment. Like I'm pretty sure the evidence does support it.
It probably does, yeah.
But regardless, the position would be, I don't give a fuck, you deserve this.
Yeah.
And I mean, we talked a few weeks ago about the way that the government is, that CoHealth they decided to shut down, citing funding problems. And this is going to just make it even harder for people to access services. Like, we talked about the CoHealth facilities have, mental health, drug rehabilitation, physio.
Services.
So if that is being removed from the community as well, it's harder to get onto the NDIS. Where the hell are people supposed to go?
Yeah, there's no
emergency departments.
Yeah.
That's literally
which are not at all designed to
Totally. Yeah. They're already fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess like it's just another thing to add to the list of crimes that the Labor Party has, enacted in its term of government. And I think the answer to it has to be what Jordy was pointing to: fully funded public services that people can access, and a vision that ordinary people deserve enjoyable, high quality lives.
Yeah, bread and roses.
Riding out the party line.
We're here with Chloe Rafferty, who is the host of Red Flag Radio.
Very good radio station.
Yeah, very good. We think that it's a little bit more intellectual than our one.
Yeah, it's like the Karl Marx, and we're like collectively the Groucho Marx of podcasting.
So if you feel like being smart after you listen to this, go over to Red Flag Radio and check out some of Chloe's other works.
There's actually like almost over 100 episodes, like a really good archive.
Yeah,
of
they're
stuff.
really good as well.
What's your best one, Chloe?
We did one on the manosphere recently.
Yeah.
Well, not that recently, but I feel like with all of the news coming out about how tight Andrew Tate is with the National Socialist Network, we're kind of prefiguring some
That's
of that.
good.
Were you kind of pro or anti manosphere?
We think it's pretty bad, yeah.
Okay. Just
I reckon the one you did at the Marxism conference last year, where you just laid into Varoufakis and all of the sort of like post-left, post-Marx intellectuals, that was pretty great. So, yeah, people can go check out the back catalogue. We've got Chloe on to talk about understanding the Liberal Party. I feel like a base understanding of the Liberal Party is that they're scum. Chloe, what's your sort of... Why should people listen to you?
How many books have you written on the topic?
My main claim to fame is that I really hate John Howard, and I have a podcast, so you have to listen to me talk about how much I hate John Howard. I was actually involved in a protest when Sydney University tried to give him like an honorary degree, which is like a Doctor of War Crimes protest where we like fucked up the ceremony, so that was pretty fun. But,
we sat on his car, remember?
Yeah, we
As
did.
he was driving
that's
out.
right. There was a bit of biffo. And I will be chucking a sickie when that man finally dies. And I encourage all of the workers of Australia to chuck a sickie.
You heard it here first. General
Chuck a big
strike.
block party.
General
strike when Howard dies.
Perfect. Well, it's not, general celebration strike.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Margaret Thatcher style.
Yeah.
You know, when Margaret Thatcher died, you know, there were people like partying in the streets. Let's bring that kind of energy when Howard finally kicks the bucket.
Well, we can make the event page when it comes to it. So, Chloe, I would posit that the Liberals are in a pretty terrible state at the moment. Just sort of...
You reckon?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you think about it, like they've just suffered one of the most embarrassing election defeats in a long time. Even though the Labor Party isn't that like massively popular or whatever, there is their whole base in the urban centre is just crumbling away. They've got Pauline Hanson nipping at the heels, and then the
Various instability
That's
in the
right.
leaderships across the country.
Yeah. So I guess where does this crisis come from? What's the read on the situation?
Well, it's Team A of Australian capitalism, the Liberal Party, and more broadly the coalition. And they're in something of an existential crisis right now. And yeah, as you said, it's a crisis on, I don't really want to call it the left, but like the Liberal wing, the Teals, and a kind of crisis on the right with One Nation. I think like the Teals has been a looming threat for them for some time, but the last election it's really felt more like an existential threat to the Liberals. So one indicator of that is that 2 of the last 4 leaders of the Liberal Party have now lost their seats to the Teals, Abbott and Turnbull. And those were like, that's like Wentworth and Warringah, the number 1 and 2 wealthiest electorates in the country. Like the Team A of Australian capitalism is supposed to have these seats, you know. And they've lost these. They don't look likely to win them back. And it's worth saying, like the Teals are people who by right should be in the Liberal Party.
Yeah.
Like these are wealthy, capitalist and upper middle class women who are economically conservative and mildly socially liberal. So they're kind of losing these seats, but they're also losing a section of their base who previously were pretty held in check within the Liberal Party.
Yeah, like the lineage of a bunch of these Teal independents, so-called, like Allegra Spender's whole family, it seems, for the last 2 or 3 generations were ensconced in Liberal Party or Conservative Party politics in Australia.
I mean, you can smell the money walking through these suburbs. Like you just walk through and you're like, ooh, $100 bills, just like, look at that, you know, like it's disgusting.
Yeah.
But the fact they can't hold on to these places, and it's not because like the population there is like radicalizing to the left or anything. It's just that these people understand that running a country historically, traditionally meant sort of making some compromises to reality, you know, accepting that climate change is real, maybe that gay people should exist and, you know, be tolerated. Maybe women should be seen occasionally in public, you know, stuff like that. And that's like too far for the current Liberal Party, you know, like those kind of ideals are just not where the party's at.
And I mean, they tried to do a bit of damage control by getting Sussan Ley in as the leader, but they've just
We can see that cracking already.
Yeah, and like they just undermine her at every turn.
Well, it's an auspicious time to be a leader. Like when you're planning for like 6 years in the wilderness, like chuck your first women in.
Totally, yeah.
It's ridiculous. But it's also not just the Liberals that the Teals are causing a crisis for. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it was a bit of an election strategy. Well, for a long time, it was the election strategy of the Greens to go after some of these seats as well and really presented themselves as kind of like the Teals. So they could see that they get a kind of middle-class progressive vote in the inner cities. I think down in Victoria where you guys were, that was a big part of their approach to the state elections as well. And that's kind of made harder by the fact that the Teals have just kind of come into being and bankrolled by, the Climate 300 money.
Simon Holmes at court.
Yeah, Climate 300 seems to think that like having a Menzies cabinet minister as a granddad is like one of the key KPIs that they're going to hit. Because Allegra Spender isn't the only one. There's also one down in Victoria whose granddad was in a Menzies cabinet. But yeah, that's kind of eaten a lot of the base and strategy for the Greens with like going after both like Labor held but also some Liberal held inner city kind of leafy wealthy seats.
And so where do the Liberals go? Like you have to have an urban base. You have to have, you know, seats in Melbourne and in Sydney in order to be able to govern. Like, I guess...
Because one of the things now is like the Liberals have like no seats in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Like, maybe like one or something. I don't know what it's like in Sydney. I think they have a couple more there. There's some more conservative areas. But basically like around the country, there's been some analysis done by like Ben Rowie and stuff. Like they basically obliterated from the urban centres. And in America, you can win elections from the rural areas. Because of the way the demographics are distributed. But in Australia, like everybody lives in big cities.
And then the problem in like the Australian cases, well, for the Liberals, is that, so yeah, they're losing the cities, but then in the rural areas, One Nation is just rising again. So they're being cornered on both sides.
Yeah, like the suburban and like rural seats that the Liberal Party has, they're kind of not threatening One Nation seats. They're not threatening the national seats too much. But yeah, it wasn't so much playing out at the election itself, but like since the election, One Nation have massively increased in the polls. And I think the highest poll they had, they're consistently in like the teens. The highest poll was something like 18%. And yeah, Ben Rowie and others have said like if there was an election tomorrow, One Nation might actually win like 12 seats. So that is also a threat on the right to the Liberal Party. And it's pretty, I think, helped along by like years of far-right mobilisations around COVID, which, remember, Scott Morrison was in federal government. Like most of those were targeting Labor state governments, but Morrison was in federal government. So there's anger on the right at the Liberals in that time too, like conspiracy theorists, theorist cookers, that kind of thing.
15-minute
but
cities.
also just Trump. Yeah. Sorry.
15-minute cities, remember?
15-minute cities.
How terrible would it be if you could access everything you needed in 15 minutes?
It's so funny that they've like made this their big campaign point because it sounds incredible to me.
That'd be amazing. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, Chloe.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah, you cultural Marxists and you're
That's right.
coming in to take over, to steal their like petrol cars. I think Andrew Hastie had that like deranged.
Vroom,
it was
vroom.
kind of like Howard for the Trump era video about our God-given right to build Australian cars for the Australian people instead of soulless, silent Chinese EV cars. So, I think that's connected to the 15-minute city. I don't really get it. But I guess like the growing vote for One Nation, I mean, that can present a bit of an argument for the right, the National Right and the Liberal Party to say, oh yeah, the Teals, we're under threat from them, but we also, we have to play to our base, which is the hard right that we run the risk of losing to One Nation.
It's interesting though mentioning Hastie and One Nation because it's not like the Liberals haven't ever faced a threat from One Nation before, and the way that they reacted and the way that like we can see it now is to move further to the right. Like there's a significant section
and put Pauline Hanson in jail.
Also that I don't think they'll be successful this time.
But absolutely. Like Howard adored Hanson. Like, she was saying a lot of the things out loud that he had said in the 80s and lost the leadership of the party for, which is we're being swamped by Asians. And so they kind of made her persona non grata. They stopped preferencing her. They like looked for corruption, found it, put her in jail. But also they adopted heaps of her policies, which Howard was more than happy to do. And like the whole political climate moved to the right on that. So, the protest movements were important in like defeating Hanson, but really it was kind of like a Pyrrhic victory for our side because One Nation kind of in the 90s tanked, but then all of Australian politics moved further to the right, particularly on refugees.
And Indigenous stuff as well. Like that was the era of the sort of Keith Windshuttle culture wars about like, did anything bad really happen in Australia in colonisation? Like,
Black armband.
should we be sad about it? Should we be glad about it? The resurrection of Anzac Day and all this stuff. Like there was quite a lot of, like Howard was, I mean, it's the thing about contemporary politics, it just keeps moving to the right. But Howard was on the right wing of the Liberal Party and like, so pro-Hanson, adopted a lot of her stuff. He was seen as kind of, not a total extremist, but like, definitely on the hard right of what was acceptable.
Well, he had to have two goes at it, right?
Yeah,
because he was so virulently like anti-Asian, extreme racism towards Asian people, that he actually got like booted and then had to come back and sort of be rehabilitated. And Hanson played a role in helping that to happen.
Yeah, except Hanson's rehabilitation, because she also had a rehabilitation, but she was just on Dancing with the Stars. Imagine if John Howard just went on Dancing with the Stars.
That would be great. He might fall and break his hip
I
or
was
something.
about to say.
Yeah, it helps when all of the legacy media just kind of keep your infamy alive
Yeah.
by like having you on TV when you're out of office for years.
Totally.
Well, you got Channel 7. It's just like a fascist rent-a-crowd kind of station.
I mean, so what about how the factions are working sort of today? Because obviously in the past, some of the divides inside the Liberal parties, you know, the protectionists versus, you know, the free traders, or the wets versus the dries. Now it's sort of the different parts of the Liberal Party, the sort of more moderate wing.
So-called, yeah.
So-called, exactly. I mean, yeah, Sussan Ley, like SS, how she's fucking moderate is...
It's numerology, okay? It's got nothing to do with the Nazis.
From a punk
nothing
era.
to do with it, yeah.
But they sort of feel like the kind of Peter Dutton Trumpist style thing kind of failed. But then there's also Hasty on the other side who feels like, no, we need to double down on that. So how's this all playing out right now?
Yeah, so like lots of soul searching in the media about how the Liberals need to ditch the culture wars and make a turn to the sensible centre and be more of a Turnbull, or more like the Democrats and kind of less
They worked so well.
Trumpian
Yeah.
Howard style. Yeah. And Sussan Ley, like technically she's not a mod. She's kind of like a centre, like pragmatic figure. But that's clearly why she won the leadership.
Yeah.
They wanted her to play that role of turning away from that after the election. And yeah, we can see how that's played out. Like the so-called moderates or modern Liberals just constantly capitulate to the right. Like they're the ones that are disciplined by it. So particularly like dropping net zero, which Sussan Ley didn't even cast a vote on when that was brought to caucus. But they can see like they want to look to bringing back, winning back some of the Teal seats, winning back some of the women voters, trying to get anybody under 40 because they've massively dropped amongst anybody under 40. But the national right, they're cohered around social conservatism, and their big things are dropping net zero, which they've achieved, and kind of pushing a more virulent kind of Howard era style, like fuck climate change. Either you don't believe in it or who cares. We just want to massively expand gas and coal, by the way, that is going on under our vote, but they want to be kind of more upfront about it. And then, really the next step, Andrew Hasty's launching a massive campaign about going to the next election with a program of lowering immigration.
Yeah. Are you able to talk us through the historical context of the Liberal Party and the different sections of Australian capitalism, like we're seeing now, fighting against each other, or like not fighting against each other, they're all friends, but for different priorities and stuff, and how that was kind of the project of the Liberal Party, and it's kind of just something that we've seen throughout their history. Like how did it start?
Yeah, that was Menzies' key achievement. Was like he's like the hero of conservatives because he united a totally disunited kind of bourgeois politics, which was divided between all these different kind of sectional bits of the capitalist class, and he united them around just like a hatred of the Labor Party and a desire to keep the unions out of having any political influence. And that meant that there's kind of sectional bits of the capitalist class, particularly in that era. There's like the ones that are more keen on some protectionism, like manufacturing, ones that are more just hardcore free trade. At that time, that was more the graziers and the merchants. And just going, no, we've got to put aside these differences, make a few pragmatic changes around the edges and fight the Labor Party. And so, the divisions back then, there were some that were kind of more social, but much more economic strategy in that era. Whereas today, they tend to be pretty united around questions of economic rule, but more divided on social questions.
And I think part of the reason things have fallen apart a little bit in the Liberals and on the right is that Labor's not a serious challenge to capital. I mean, it never was, but it's not doing anything at all these days to, and hasn't really since the 80s, to discipline or refine or challenge or redistribute wealth from capital. And so I don't think, like, capital obviously doesn't love the Labor Party, even still. They still prefer the Liberals mostly, but they're not so desperate to get them out, keep them out, squash them, destroy them.
And I feel like the Labor Party can present as a much more stable option as well.
Totally,
like they don't have all of these internal divisions that are about, how do we want to present ourselves to the world? They're all united on message of like, we want to make Australian capitalism modern. We want to tighten our relationship with America, the AUKUS deal. Like Labor is pretty united on those core sort of messages. Whereas like the Liberal Party just look a shambles. So Capital can just say, well, we're just going to go with the one that can get us what we want.
You guarantee profits and
Yeah,
stability.
I think it's still like they would prefer the Liberals, and they, you keep getting stuff in The Age in Melbourne, probably the SMH as well, like bemoaning the state of the Liberal Party. Come on, guys, get your act together. We need a good opposition.
Please.
That slogan, like, we want a check on Labor. They hated it during COVID when the Labor state governments broadly did the right thing on public health, and they really were frustrated that the Liberals couldn't be a coherent antidote to that. So I think it's Labor. The point about Labor is they haven't won the primary allegiance of Capital, but they've just neutralised them. They're not raging against Labor, and so the Liberals in that sense it's not as important to get their shit together.
Yeah, you think like sometimes the capitalist class think you need just full frontal class warfare, and sometimes you need a kind of more moderated, regulated process of co-optation. Like Labor implemented neoliberalism, but they did it with like this Faustian pact between like big business, the trade union bureaucracy, and the government, not in the kind of Margaret Thatcher style, although they did fuck over the pilots and others. Whereas like sometimes the disciplining impact for the ruling class and middle class base of the Liberals is like the trade unions are on the offensive. Yeah, Labor rule for Australian capitalism, but we want like a full frontal, like Malcolm Fraser style attack. We want John Howard's war on the waterfront type thing. And like, it's not just that like, Labor are now basically a small C conservative party, so that's not disciplining the Teals to vote Liberal. It's also that like the trade unions aren't fighting.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they don't think like, there's this real need to make sure Andrew Hastie's the leader of the government. They think, that's pretty in check. And the Labor Party can sometimes just get away with austerity more easily than the Liberal Party can, like Albo's announcement about, cuts to the public service.
Well, can we go back and talk about the factions? Because we started talking about that. Like, there's specific kind of class dynamics behind the sort of the wets and the dries traditionally, and the sort of policies broadly associated with that. Can you talk us through the kind of class sort of alliances in the Liberal Party and the contradictions and how they play out?
Like the social questions.
Yeah. Like the middle class versus the big capitalists, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, the big, they're generally all pretty conservative, even on social questions. But I think if you look at today, like the average wealthy urban voter in Australia who is economically, socially conservative is probably not as likely to be like a troglodyte on like gay marriage, is probably not likely to be like a total climate change denier. And that's probably true with like lots of the metropolitan sections of like the capitalist class, like the, bankers and stuff down in Martin Place in Sydney. That's quite different to, like, there are some ideological sections of the big bourgeoisie. Like Gina Reinhardt is clearly radicalized.
Yeah,
like, she's
totally.
going on tour with Pauline Hanson, like hanging out with Donald Trump. It's less surprising because she's like the mining resource sector of the capitalists. So they kind of feel less inclined to even want to capitulate on questions of climate. But that's increasingly out of step with especially the urban voting base of very rich people in inner city seats who are more like socially progressive than they used to be. That's just like a drift in Australian culture. But even when they did have some socially progressive values in like the 1960s and 70s, they were usually just disciplined under the leadership of the Conservatives because the unions were striking. That seemed like a threat, and they backed the Liberal Party and how it ruled.
And then if you go sort of even further back, because obviously a bunch of the stuff that Hastie's is saying is repulsive, in line totally with sort of Trumpian style international far right politics. But the history of the Liberal Party is not as though extreme right wing politics wasn't present in it. Like Menzies was an absolute like right wing scumbag, enamored with the sort of Hitler like Hitler's project in Germany, said there was a lot of stuff that Australia could learn from what Hitler was doing.
The trains ran on time, you know.
Well, and also, you know, campaigned massively to ban the Communist Party, and loved the Queen and the British Empire. Like,
united the fascists into the fucking Liberal Party.
Yeah. So that politics is so sort of core to the politics of the Liberal Party.
Yeah, and it's the thing that holds the sort of middle class mass base of the party in with the capitalists, because the middle class, you know, they sometimes dislike big business too. You know, they're kind of competing with it at a massive disadvantage to it. So, but the thing they do agree on is the unions are a threat. They hate penalty rates. They hate everything to do with the working class being organised and demanding more. And they are atomized as small businesses are atomized. You know, you don't really like have a unity of small businesses. They're all competing with each other as well. So the thing that unites them is sort of nationalism, bigotry, reaction. You see, you know, people who own small businesses, their whole life is the home and the business. You know, that's pretty much all they do. They go between one and the other. It's a very conservative, stagnant, socially backwards kind of life experience. And so they tend to be much more radical, really. And they're needed, right? Because the big capitalists are not going to hand out on polling booths, right? You know, like, they're not going to branch meetings like discussing policy. They're not, you know, competing with the labor union people on the ground. So you need to keep those people on side. And so that the social reaction stuff really suits their interests. And you see it in America as well, in the Republicans, but in the Liberal Party here, going way back as well.
Yeah, we often talk about like the middle class in relation to like the progressive middle class, like the Teal voters that we're talking about, progressive, you know, socially liberal middle class, like the Teal voters, or socially progressive middle class, like a section of the Greens voters or something. But like the vast majority of the middle classes, particularly the kind of small business owner middle classes, are conservative. They're the social base for conservative values in Australian society, both in economic terms, hostility to trade unions, government intervention into the economy, regulation, but also in terms of, as Omar was saying, like family values, you know, more likely to be religious, they're more likely to have socially reactionary attitudes towards like gender and sexuality, all of that. Well, the difficulty though for the Liberal Party is that as like it's contradictory, but like as Labor becomes just like more conservative and neoliberal, it's hard for them to attract the social reactionary conservatives. But there's so little between them in economic program that like clearly for a long time, for example, like down where you guys are in Victoria, the Labor Party did have accrue a section of the pretty wealthy middle class as a voter base as well. So they can kind of attract them because they're not seen as a threat to the wealth of the middle class.
Yeah. Well, maybe moving on a bit, I guess the other thing that adds to the sort of crisis and the sand moving under the feet for the Liberal Party is the Nationals and the way that they have been sort of more aggressively pursuing things such as the getting rid of net zero, but then also Barnaby Joyce is now quit. So obviously the Liberal Party is the coalition. They're the coalition with the Nationals. What's their relationship with them now? How did that sort of where did the coalition come from? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean Barnaby Joyce. It's like the longest breakup. Will they? Won't
he loves
they?
the attention.
Will he join One Nation?
You can see him.
I guess the first.
Sorry, no, that's just stupid.
The first thing to say about the Nationals is that they just have this totally disproportionate influence to their actual base in Australian society. And their last election, they got 3.8% of the national vote. But regardless of how low this national vote is, when the coalition are in government, they're always the deputy prime minister because of this coalition. And you compare that to like the Greens got 12% of the election. Even One Nation got 6.4%. And I think it's quite funny if you think about it, like the Greens are so much more loyal to the Labor Party than like the Nationals ever are to the Liberal Party.
That's sad.
The Nationals know how to be like a minority throwing around your weight in a bunch of ways. But like so the Liberals have always needed a coalition partner that reliably win seats in the country. It's so they can have the kind of two brands, like the one with the Akubra and the one with like the slick suit, to basically go after the like rural capitalist class, but also like rural like middle class voters and some like socially reactionary working class voters as well. So 3.8% of the national vote, but like quite stable in how they have held down those rural seats. So it just means that, and that they have a lot of power in the coalition and they throw that disproportionate weight around.
And they're like super, in terms of going back to the economic side of things, like the Nationals are the most sort of interventionist, like Trumpy style economically, like big state for them, you know, not for the workers, but lots of handouts to like
subsidies,
farmers, lots of subsidies. You know, every time there's a fire somewhere, there needs to be billions of dollars spent in helping farmers buy new cattle and whatever. And it's incredible. Like what do they used to call it? Agrarian socialism or something, like sarcastically. Like these people, they're such hypocrites because they are all about handouts for big businesses. And because people think farmers in Australia, there's this sort of vision of like a farmer on a quarter-acre block, like trying to make a living. But Australia's got the most mechanized, advanced farming sector, highly concentrated and centralized, highly capital intensive, barely employs anyone. It's like massive agriculture, agribusiness. But they just keep getting handouts, and they're treated like as part of the national mythology, like they're struggling, kind of almost working class people.
Yeah, they're like extremely rich, big capital, but heavily reliant on the state for like handouts and subsidies, and they send their kids to posh boarding schools like King's College. You know, like that's who farmers are in Australia, not this like little small farmer in the Dust Bowl in America. I think people have this misguided vision of that in Australia.
When I was at uni, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, like, because of this, like the fact that they don't contest seats in the city, the Nationals, they can be way more right-wing than the Liberal Party because they're not contesting for kind of urban, slightly more socially liberal seats. So just kind of hit it out the park with like Trumpian politics.
Yeah, when I was at uni, I was I met this woman who turned out to be the daughter of the guy who ran the Australian wheat board during the scandal with Saddam Hussein. Australia was selling wheat to Saddam Hussein when there was meant to be a blockade against him. And obviously, you know, don't support the blockade, but very funny. There was a big scandal. and she owned this 2-story mansion basically in Carlton, just off Lygon Street.
Beautiful.
On Graddon Street, I think it was. Like, yeah, I was like, this is a very strange experience.
That's one way to get rich.
Boy from Dandenong, yeah. Anyway, so that's
there's often lots of pretty funny little things with like the Nationals, like sectional politics come in the foreign politics, like that contradict their social conservatism. Like the other one was like there was a big like Islamophobic campaign against live animal exports, which is like to do with halal. And then the Nationals kind of like coming in and being like, no, we actually because we represent like big beef farmers. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing about the Nationals is that they, like a few years ago, the hard right, like fascistic young men, like part of the whatever precursor to the NSN, took over young national branches and just turned them into like Nazi youth branches. It was like pretty incredible.
And no one noticed.
Well, yeah.
If a tree falls in a forest, you know, like, did it really fall?
And it's pretty clear that the Nationals would like it if the hard right faction inside the Libs won. You know, Jacinta Price obviously went over into the Libs to try and push that particular sort of brand of politics.
Or because she thought she'd be the leader. Probably more likely, I reckon.
Didn't do the numbers.
Yeah.
You always got to do the
And
numbers.
they lost the election, which was pretty embarrassing.
Yeah.
Bad career move.
Yeah. So I guess where do they go now? Like, can the Liberals ever win again? Is the crisis sort of an eternal one?
Is it Labor forever?
Where do we go? Where do they go?
I'm not going to predict the next election outcome.
You have to.
I'm not
You have to.
I mean,
Put
like,
your reputation
I think
on the
lots
line.
of people pretty comfortably think that, like, you know, Labor could be in government for some time. And it does look pretty hard to see how the Liberals can win back the Teal seats anytime soon and what the pathway to government is. But I think this moment and all the faction fights in the Liberal Party really demonstrate that politics actually matters. So they're like pro-capitalist politicians are willing to be pragmatic and drop their self-help principles in order to get elected. Like the example I always think is like Dom Perrottet, who was in New South Wales Premier for a while there. It's just like hard right, borderline
Christian guy,
fascistic, like
Opus
hard
Dei.
Catholic, a million kids, like so socially reactionary.
Some of us have
Basically
big
ran the
families,
state.
okay? Like,
Okay.
Yeah, you're showing a secular
Like,
elitism.
if you look at photos, it's like children of the corn. And he basically ran the government like Gladys Berejiklian, like it was like a wet government because he knew that's kind of how you have to do things in New South Wales state politics. But there is a limit to that pragmatism, and I think we're seeing right now conservative politicians are real ideologues, and they're willing sometimes to sacrifice, particularly when they're backed by sections of the legacy media like Murdoch, to sacrifice short-term electoral expediency to actually just dig in and try and reshape Australian politics around the conservative agenda that they have. And so I think, this wishful thinking from like The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald that will the Liberals return to the sensible centre and try and win back the Teals, this is really fucking unlikely.
Totally.
So I think, the hasty kind of Taylor leadership, I think, is likely in the future. Whether or not that can get them back into office anytime soon, I don't know. But in the long term, we know that they're still Team A of Australian capitalism, and the capitalist class are willing to put up with like a lot of socially conservative hijinks that like are not their kind of natural position if the Liberals can rule in a way that's really profitable to them and like suppresses wages.
Yeah, because we've seen how the Liberals respond to challenges from their white also actually
They're white right.
exactly like in the past, particularly with One Nation, and they just move to the right, consume that position, and make One Nation irrelevant. But I don't think we've seen I can't recall a time where they've faced a challenge from both their right and, if we're going to call it, their left, from the Teals. You can't really move both directions at the same time.
I think it's important that we do, because we've all done it, slip into this idea of the Teals to the left.
Yeah.
I think it's like, what is left and what is right? It's economics, actually.
Yeah.
That's the defining thing. And the Teals are more neoliberal than the Liberal Party. Like, they are like aggressively for higher GSTs, for example. They're against all these subsidies to everything, basically. They're an extremely neoliberal party. And like Malcolm Turnbull, was he really to the left of somebody who's like, a better example, in the Howard years, Howard invented this thing called the baby bonus, where he gave $3,000 to women who had babies, like this Stalinist kind of era of like, yes, here's money for having children. That's the main thing women should do. Peter Costello didn't like that policy because he was like a neoliberal and thought like, why is the government intervening into the market? Like people should just have babies if they want them. And, so who's more left wing in that context?
Totally,
it doesn't really help you understand.
No,
so
it's
I don't
like
think
a social question rather than an economic question.
Yeah, and obviously social questions matter.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, there's actually the thing about being disciplined by economics means when in times of crisis, socially progressive people can often end up being hard right, even fascistic. Like, so John Monash, founder of Monash University, like he became far right in the Great Depression era, because basically it was a Great Depression. He was a big capitalist. He couldn't give a shit about his intellectual, roots or whatever. So, yeah, I think those things are decisive and quite important for understanding politics.
Totally.
Allegra Spender's like big issue, like she got the Climate 300 money and she said something about women and climate or whatever, but her big issue is tax reform and like that the major parties need to make like unpopular decisions and open up conversations they're uncomfortable with. Overwhelmingly, that's like we need more neoliberal tax cuts, we need to raise the GST, consumption taxes, that kind of thing. And I think you could see the Teals like forming a minority government with either Labor or the Liberal Party. So I think if things just go on as they are, it's unlikely the Liberals will win those seats back anytime soon again. But they have faced challenges, not to their left, from their Liberal wing in the form of like the Australian Democrats. How are the Australian Democrats destroyed? They backed GST, actually. So like the Teals could do something that discredits themselves, Or Labor could, just be in government when some economic crisis hits, and those rich seats kind of swing back to their natural home, the Liberal Party. I'm not predicting that's going to happen anytime soon, but you could see that disciplining effect happening. And the Liberals kind of rely on that, like Labor just discrediting themselves, and they will, like they will discredit themselves because they're offering like fuck all to workers. They're overseeing like a historic cost of living crisis. So who knows if that's going to happen anytime soon, but there's always a reason to think like the capitalists wanting the Liberal Party back in government, and then the base eroding for Labor, opening up the pathway back to government.
So then I guess, what does this mean for socialists and the left? What does the crisis in the Liberal Party mean for us? How can we deepen the crisis?
How do we respond?
How do we piss on their,
graves?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think the main way the crisis is playing out is the rise of far-right politics inside and outside the Liberal Party. And what that generally results in is this pressure driven by Labor and its supporters upon left-wing people to just fall into line and back the Labor Party because the alternative are a bunch of psychotic, next to Nazi troglodytes. So that pressure of lesser evilism to back Labor in elections, or to, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good kind of stuff. I think like that becomes actually sharper as the far right rises. You see that the way that's played out in the US with the rise of Trump, for example. And we have to remind ourselves that like Labor have overseen a cost of living crisis. They've backed a genocide. They're actually capitulating to the anti-migrant politics of the far right now, and like slavishing praise on Trump with AUKUS. So I think a big thing for the left is that we have to build a genuine political alternative to all of the parties of capitalism, and not just fall into lesser evilism when the kind of right are on the march. So crisis in the Liberal Party is a good thing, but it's only a good thing when the left capitalise upon it by building like a genuine alternative that's independent from like capitalist politics of all stripes.
Yeah, that's right. Because one of the sort of things about crises in politics is that things can polarize or radicalize in both directions. And internationally, there is just a big sort of divide amongst broad sections of society between where do you look to? Do you look to the far right and Donald Trump and Reform UK and Tommy Robinson or whatever? Or are people looking for a different alternative? And so, one expression of that is the movement for Palestine or the general strike in Italy. We need to actually build organisations that can win large layers of people to the idea that the reason why life sucks, the reason why capitalism is getting worse is because of the rich and powerful, because of the capitalist class. And so people should actually, organise against them and, build forces against them. But it's like the only way that you can do that is if you can convince people that your arguments are right and that your solution can win. And to be able to win, you need to be big, basically. And so we want to win the battle for ideas, but we also want to win the battle on the streets and the battles in the workplaces. So it's a real argument for people getting organised, not just sort of letting the crises kind of unfold before their eyes, but try and make an impact on those crises in a positive direction.
Absolutely. And you can see the alternative with what's just happened with the Greens through the last 6 months or longer now. Before the election, they decided Dutton was the main threat. They had to campaign against Dutton and basically for a Labor government. That didn't help them. And then since the election, they've been basically signing up for whatever the Labor Party wants to do. And their rationale to their kind of left critics is, and we copped a bit of this from the episode last week.
Totally.
Should they have gone, otherwise Liberals would have gone it. The Labor would have had to do a deal with the Liberals. That would have made the policy worse. But if you accept that logic, there's no reason to ever do anything left-wing at all. You're just always going to accept the left-wing of what exists. You might as well always vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris because otherwise you get Trump. You got to vote for Albo, otherwise you get Dutton. And actually, the more the far right grows, the more that pressure grows. And so the Greens have already shown themselves abjectly incapable of responding. And the reason that matters is, the more that the left, broadly defined, is associated with these centrist neoliberal governments who fail, then the anti-establishment sentiment, which does exist, and some of that's confused and quite apolitical and can be won in a range of ways, that gets concealed around the hard
Totally.
opposition,
Totally.
Yeah.
which is the far right at the moment because the left isn't big enough.
Yeah.
So it doesn't help. You know, people think they're doing the smart thing, but we've seen this in Germany, you know, like coalition governments between the Greens, the Social Democrats, and even the Conservatives, you know, the whole sensible centre working together. All that does is mean the far right grows and the left is discredited.
And I mean, like, it actually, that unfolds on the right wing of politics as well. Like in Italy at the last election, the reason why Meloni was able to win is because her party hadn't been in any of the coalition. They
Totally,
didn't
yeah.
seem discredited in the same way the other forces had. So, you know, capitulating and agreeing to bullshit and, you know, trying to dress it up and put a ribbon on it makes you less capable of winning the battles that matter, I think.
And you think like the two big issues that the right of the Liberal Party are pushing right now, like going even further backwards on climate and attacking immigration, like it would be absurd to think that like falling into line behind Labor is going to challenge these political questions. Like Labor are massively expanding coal and gas projects and then celebrating themselves as having ended the climate wars. They ended the climate wars by us losing the climate wars and the bourgeoisie winning them. And then on immigration, like they, you know, that it's important to the capitalist class, so they don't want to significantly reduce it. But they'll go along with all of the racism, like, you know, pinning the blame on international students for the housing crisis and kind of buying into a bit of that. So it's obvious, even just narrowly looking at those those immediate political questions, that, you know, we need to build political organisation that puts forward a socialist argument about these things and doesn't just fall into line behind the less evil arguments. And yeah, the direction the Greens are going in, what's the phrase that their leader keeps losing, like get shit done, which kind of sounds like, ooh, it's a bit swearing, but like the emphasis of that is like, we're going to pass Labour.
Absolutely.
Like, that's what get shit done means.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, bad shit.
And the thing about like the climate stuff is really is quite relevant on this, because energy prices are increasing and there's an argument that it's because, you know, there's no more coal being built and renewables aren't happening quick enough. And it's sort of a stupid argument. Yeah. But like, it doesn't really matter. The facts are energy prices are going up and people think there's a transition. Okay, so going along with that uncritically and maybe just making a few 1% tweaks that no one hears about, all you're doing is saying this is fine. Whereas actually there is a crisis in energy in Australia. People are struggling to pay the bills. We should be nationalising, undoing all the privatisation, you know, all the energy companies, all the poles and wires, renationalise, recollectivise, and run it under the interests of the working class. Like that's the solution. And yet in that context, renewables will be paired with affordability, whereas now renewables is just being paired with neoliberal market policies. Totally. Why would anyone sign up to that? And that's why skepticism towards climate change is growing. It's still, you know, small, but it's growing. And because actually economics shapes people's realities far more than abstractions like the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. And there is a way to bring those two things together in a progressive direction, but you have to be radical. And the right have worked out that they're onto a winner here, I think, with the energy price stuff. Yeah. And that's going to just keep growing because there's a limit to how much people can afford to pay to turn on the lights.
So the answer to for what socialists should do in the face of the impending crisis of the Liberal Party is build left-wing radical politics.
Don't get dragged in behind this scum who run this country.
Yeah.
Please.
Well, thanks so much for coming on to the pod, Chloe. Do you want to leave our listeners with any last pearls of wisdom or...
Yeah, great to join you. I mean, I think we really covered it. There's a crisis in the Liberals. There's a shake-up going on in capitalist politics. None of it's good. I mean, it's good that they're in crisis, but none of it's good in the form of, like, the Teals are a toxic blight on, like, progressive politics. It's basically these kind of Hillary Clinton-style figures that, unfortunately, lots of the left are getting behind. The far right are obviously a clear and present danger in terms of ratcheting up the racism in Australian politics. And yeah, it's definitely important for people to get involved in socialist politics. There's an urgency to it now on every front because capitalism's getting worse day by day, and these questions that they're pushing around. You know, Australia's not immune to the trends that are going on overseas. You know, they're kind of newer here and shallower here, but that direction, if we look at the UK or the US as a vision of what the future of Australian politics might look like, the time to get organised is now.
Thanks, Chloe.
riding out the party line.
Well, it was really great to have Chloe on.
That's awesome.
Chloe is, she sort of said her only claim to fame was that she like speaks on a podcast and she hates Howard, but it's not actually true. Chloe is a pretty wonderful activist up in New South Wales. She's a member of the New South Wales Socialists, but also she's works at a university and is part of the NTU there. And they were recently on strike. So Chloe is a striking worker. It's another claim to fame.
She was also the president of the New South Wales branch of NUS back in 2014.
No way.
The National Union of Students. And the reason that's relevant is that was the year that we stopped Tony Abbott introducing $100,000
True.
degrees. So she can definitely claim some responsibility
Fuck
for
yeah.
that success.
Yeah. Did you guys see the Labor students
Yeah.
are trying to lock the
That's
socialists out of
crazy.
the student union?
How good.
Yeah.
Terrible.
And what was their rationale?
We're
That
too
they,
mean to the government.
yeah, they think that NUS has been too anti-government, and so they need to stop that from happening next year. So
Yeah, it's important for trade unions to be really, really
Yeah, really
nice to the
friendly.
people in charge of their
Yeah.
living conditions.
They'd totally do that if we were too mean to the Liberal Party too.
because
Yeah.
all these young Labor students, it's like people talk about them as like the future prime ministers and whatever, and like that's garbage. These
Oh,
people are
God.
not talented enough to be.
I mean, Albo's not very talented.
I know, but these guys are even less talented than that. But what they actually are training to be is trade union
Totally,
organisers and bureaucrats and stuff like that. So they have to learn a lesson that the job of the union is not actually to fight for the members' rights, but to, support the Labor Party when they're in government.
And doing terrible things to the working class.
Yeah. And then the other thing is just Chloe, like we've said, is a co-host of Red Flag Radio. And I bring that up because Red Flag Radio, they did a live recording at the Marxism conference that happened over the Easter weekend this year. And so this is my plug to the Marxism organisers that Red Flag Radio, what are we called? The Party Line should also have a
We
slot
should have like
at
a
the
battle.
Like at the same time and see who goes to which?
No, like
Oh, okay.
on the same platform.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to see that, you should come along to the Marxism conference. It's Australia's largest left-wing conference. Over 1,000 people come every year. We're going to get guest speakers from around the world, like including France and Spain.
Argentina with Malay. Will be interesting.
Exactly. And so it's a really good event to come along to. You went last year, like, did you?
Yeah, I've been one time before and I'll be going again. I just bought my ticket. I
Nice.
loved it. It was really good.
So people can go to marxismconference.org if they'd like to grab a ticket and say hi to us there.
The theme this year is like Marxism for a New Left, which I think is quite appropriate given what we've seen the last 2 years with the Palestine movement, the Trump administration, the far right here in Australia. It's sort of grappling with these
And
issues.
your party.
Yeah, your party. A bit of a deeper level, like what kind of left do we need? What is fascism? What is this threat that's rising everywhere? What has the Palestine movement taught about our society? Yeah. I think it's going to be a particularly useful one.
Yeah.
Cool. And then we are like really quite blown away by how many people have supported us on Patreon.
Yeah, we're
it's
rich.
awesome.
Well,
Are we?
we've paid for our Acast subscription,
Totally. Yeah. Finally. We broke even.
which is really good.
Which is awesome. Yeah.
No, we still haven't broken even yet. We haven't paid off the microphones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Shit.
That'll take us
Yeah.
years probably.
We
So
should have
if-
stolen.
So we're not
them.
rich. Sorry.
if you want to help us,
I'll take that back.
if you want to help us not become petty criminals, you can.
Yeah, make us big criminals. Really
Yeah, living off the
effective
backs of
ones.
your wage.
No,
Also, maybe we'll employ like a stylist every session to make us look really good before
I would
the show.
actually love that.
Just
to
out
be
the back.
honest, I would love that.
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
I mean, Omar can be the boss.
Of what?
I don't know, just a boss.
No, I don't
No,
know.
no,
I just
no,
want a
no.
stylist.
yeah, we really.
I actually really need
I
a stylist.
really want a stylist.
Anyway, so they're the big issues to give to our Patreon.
Yeah. And then just before, Jordy's going to leave us out on a song, but just before that, I just wanted to say, quite important left-wing writer, Assad Haider,
Oh, yeah.
died this week. He was an author of quite an excellent book called Mistaken Identity. I don't think that's the
Oh,
book.
no.
No.
No, oops. Wrong book.
But yeah, it's like always really sad to lose people who have been wonderful contributors to the socialist movement. So people should check out that book.
It's a really good book.
yeah.
And, he was a victim of the American healthcare system, affordable housing crisis, all those things.
Yeah.
So check out the book. It's a really good critique of identity politics.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes.
yeah.
All right.
No.
You want to take us out, Jordy?
Yeah, this song is called If You Know Me by Hudson Freeman. It's not a political song whatsoever. I just think it's really nice. And he recorded it, I guess, outside. It's really shit audio quality, actually, but the song is beautiful. So enjoy.